Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a bunch of book-loving nerds rereading Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. From book 1 to book 16 million, we'll be uncovering every secret connection there is to find. Today, we are joined by Swiggity Swoo.
Thank you for trusting your ears to us for the next 2.5, maybe 3 hours.
John has returned to us.
I was ruined the whole time.
Kay's here as well.
You know, Rude just likes to gloat sometimes. He's just very full of himself.
He starts monologuing.
Dang it, he starts monologue. And I'm ReaderWarrior, and today we are going to be finishing off chapters 55 through 58. And instead of doing this at the end, where I'll likely forget about it, John, I forgot to do this last part. What did you think of this part in general?
We don't want to do that at the end?
Do we want to do it at the end?
I think we should probably do that at the end.
Okay, it's just
Yeah.
last time I forgot, so I'm trying to keep it in the forward part of it.
I'll do my best to help you remember.
Thank you. What were we talking about?
Mistborn.
Oh yes, Mistborn, chapter 55. So, in the epigraph, we've got an explanation of how preservation and ruin were kind of put in balance, in which we heard in a previous one that ruin had more power due to preservation sacrificing his to be put in humans and give them sentience, but due to preservation sticking ruin's consciousness in a prison well, that kind of made the power inert. Once again, putting them in equilibrium. And it becomes a sort of theme that we'll see, like, then discovering later how there's the ruin consciousness and the ruin power.
I love how in these books, like, the powers are so scientific, even to the point of, like, these giant natural forces. Like, it's not necessarily that one has more willpower than the other. It's like the literal power that they have is finite and needs to be balanced.
Yep. Oh, excuse me. But on to the actual meat of the chapter. After leaving some coins with the villagers, like Kay told me last episode, so I was sure to keep it in this, Ellen makes his way back to Phaedrix City. He thinks about his place in this dying world. Vin being captured is his fault. He worries about how Vin will succeed or fail to save them after all that has to save them all after he has torn the world apart. And even though she is like a force, they were both only human. Ellen slows down, surrounded by hills of ash and walls of mist. He realizes that they never had a chance and falls to his knees. But then the Mist Spirit, we later learn was actually preservation the whole time. Huh?
Right?
The Mist Spirit reappears to comfort him. Ellen is apprehensive at first. It did try to kill him the last time they met, but slowly begins to converse with him. The Mist Spirit tries to write something, but Ruin changes it, showcasing the reason why preservation... Should I stick with preservation and the Mist Spirit?
Well, we know they're the same at this point, right?
I mean, we do, but it's preservation via the Mist Spirit, right? So...
I'll do the Mist Spirit.
Yeah.
The reason why the Mist Spirit tore off pages from Sazed, they start to use charade waving to talk to each other. Ellen learns that the Mist Spirit is weaker than Ruin, that Ruin is causing the Ashfalls, and that the Mist Spirit, is partially responsible for the Day Mist. It warns Ellen about not attacking Phaedrix City, and seems to say that the Mists aren't killing people. It points to his sash of coins, but Ellen doesn't understand. He stops the being for one last question. Can we beat it? Ellen asks softly. Can we survive? However, the Mist Spirit cannot answer. Perhaps it is up to them to do it. Ellen resumes his trek to Phaedrix City, renewed with the hope that even if he could not see it, there may be hope of survival.
I do want to say that the Mist Spirit does say that they can survive. He has it's like a hesitant yes.
Yes, but it was more like a...
It was a maybe, if we're lucky.
Yeah, like a hesitant yes. There's a possibility that you can survive.
Not a vigorous wave, more of a hesitant one. an uncertain.
I like it though. Like that part in particular, I was gonna say is cool to me because it kind of like goes along with my chapter of like the conversation Spook and Sazed have, where they're talking about like the nature of faith and all that. Because I love how after this, Ellen's like, I feel like the natural reaction to that would be kind of more fear, but like he's spurred on by it anyways. He's like just knowing that this thing is out here and that it was kind of rooting for us this whole time, like gives him hope, and I think that's cool.
And it's shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say, but it's a nice little mirror effect again. Once more, that Ruin is talking to Vin and Ellen is talking to Preservation. How they're both conversing with the gods of Scadrial, basically. One is more so talking to one, the other one is talking with them and listening to them.
Nice. I actually didn't even think about that, but like, you're right. That's so cool. It's like a mirror of their experiences.
But that is it for my chapter. We have God basically showing up and saying, "You can do it, man."
I love just like picturing them
Oh.
playing charades together. Like that is so funny to me.
Oh wait,
Chicken
I was
waving his
gonna-
hands.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something, but it's in the epigraph of the next chapter.
Well, if nobody else has anything else, we're free to move on.
Okay. I had 56. Okay, do you just want to say it, or because I was about to read the whole thing, but
You're gonna read the whole thing.
I mean,
Fine.
I might as well. I didn't summarize it, so
I'll summarize it. Give me 1 second.
fine.
Basically, the
Do it
Mist Spirit was
myself.
God,
So-
the Preservation. Ooh.
Preservation used his last little bit of energy to talk to Elend. And if Elend had hung out there just a little bit longer, he actually would have seen Preservation's body. He would have seen a body fall into the ash, dead. Which is the body of It was the corporeal. It was who Preservation used to be. Part of
Okay.
Preservation, his body, and
Which it also kind of explains that
it's
like
kind of
there was a time, there must have been a time before the power and like the body converged, right?
yeah, because we can still see that the power is still around, even though the body of this person who was Preservation is now dead.
I did want to. I had a brief little thing I forgot to. So, Ruin escapes, and he knows he is more powerful than Preservation. So, likely Preservation is hiding out Great East somewhere. But in this last little moment, surrounded by corpses and literally making the motions, and Ruin is definitely paying attention. He's literally doing changing the letters, so Ruin is there. He knows what's going on. So it's like likely in my mind, in some sort of god plane, Ruin is like attacking Preservation.
Mm-hmm.
Lightning. So Preservation is literally standing there, taking literally his dying breaths, taking these god-killing blows, and just giving Ellen faith.
That's awesome to picture.
Because we see in, is it your chapter, like the exact moment that Preservation dies? Because Ruin's like, yes.
Well, we see the moment directly after when Ruin comes to in my chapter.
Do we know it? I mean, at this point, we have no idea why he's dying, though, right?
he sacrificed his mind to create the people, and that was part of by sacrificing some of his consciousness.
No,
Preservation was reduced
Yeah.
to a mere wisp of what he once was, barely capable of thought and
But-
action. See,
but
reading the whole
that-
epigraph.
but
Important.
that, Raider, that is from. He sacrificed his consciousness to create the prison for Ruin that Ruin was trapped in.
Mhm.
So the reason that he was weaker than Ruin before he even trapped Ruin was because he put a little bit of his power in every person to give them sentience, to give them consciousness. And that made him just that little bit weaker than Ruin, to the point where it eventually made that Ruin would be able to destroy the world. As a way to prevent that, Preservation took his mind and he used that power to trap Ruin in the Well of Ascension.
So it's like Ruin has a Ferrari, and he's in a race with Preservation and a T, and Preservation can't figure out which is the clutch, which is the brake, and which is the pedal. So not only is he in a crap car, but he has no idea what's going on. Okay,
Interesting
but on
way to put it.
actual 56.
Yeah, right. That's just a lot to digest, right? All that information.
Yeah.
So this chapter starts with Spook, who's basically taking notes on his plan to take down Quellion. And I love that there's even a line at the beginning of him saying like, "Oh, I always admired Kelsier's leadership, but this is easy." Anytime a character says that in a book, you know by the end of the chapter things are not going to go well. We're like pretty soon things are going bad.
Let's tempt fate.
Yeah, this is pretty easy. So basically he needs to get Quellion to expose himself as an Allomancer in public. Much like Elend, he is having doubts about his ability to follow through with his plan. Beldre soon arrives in a beautiful green dress Spook looted for her, and notices that his plans are all in street slang. After Spook divulges a little bit of how it's spoken, even slipping back into it for a few sentences, he remembers that Beldre is still his captive. But, feeling bad for her, he lets slip that his plans are exposing Quellion's allomancy publicly. Beldre suggests writing a letter instead, and it might be a way to possibly save his life. Spook agrees, but only after deciding that he's going to rearrange the sentence order and obviously read the letter to make sure that it's not some kind of cipher.
Which is genius.
I thought that too. Like, before I even read that, I was like, well, there's got to be some sort of like secret code, right? But like,
Yeah.
of course, Spook grew up in thieving crews, so he would know all about that. Gorgdel soon arrives with urgent information that Quellion's troops have left camp for some reason. Reese suggests that Goradel have his scouts search for the army, and Goradel actually looks to Spook for confirmation, which I love this moment. Like, Breeze is like, why don't you have your scouts look and see where they went? And like, Goradel's like, is that okay, Spook? You know?
They turn to the scrawny kid with a bandage.
Just like showing how far he's come from where he started out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And even like having this whole part be in Sazed's point of view, like this next section is great too. Because he's sitting there like, he's like denied the Terrace people what they want for him to be like their king. And he's like having such a hard time finding his faith right now. And here you just see Spook thriving. So they agree to follow through with the plan, a plan which requires Sazed to wear his trusty old copper mines, despite no longer believing the religions that were once his prized collection of memories. Spook tells Sazed the army went to quell a riot, saying how there is a lot more wood in Orto than the Central Dominance, which kind of scares Sazed because it just brings to his attention like how bad this could go. and he asks Spook if he really thinks they can win against Quellion, let alone the crumbling world. Spook thinks Sazed is trying to find out if he doubts himself, and basically tells him that he does have doubts about himself, and he relates it back to Tyndall saying that, like, she had always said a leader needs to be fearless, and she would be so disappointed in him for having doubts, which basically leads Sazed to think, like, oh my god, like, he's right, you know, that was all Tyndall had. Like, her teachings were all about that, and I'm sitting here questioning everything and, like, complaining and doubting and trying to, like, pick apart these little religions when everyone else is doing their best. And it ends with him basically saying, like, hope is what I've lost, and that's what I need to get back.
I wouldn't describe it as hope, but it's his faith that he needs. And it's what's difficult to understand is he's recognizing, I want to have faith, but how do you force yourself to believe again?
I guess we'll find out, but it is interesting that, like, Spook's faith right now is coming from such a strange place. You know, and I guess since we find out at the end of this chapter set, we can kind of talk about it now, but, like, is Sazed almost right? Like, we know that preservation is there, you know, on their side and all that, but, like, I guess I'm just saying I can totally sympathize with where Sazed's coming from. You know what I mean? Especially now that, you know, like, Spook has basically all this false confidence from Kelsier.
It's so going back to, like, the start of the chapter, Spook is mimicking Kelsier because that's what Ruin's been basically tricking him into believing. You're the voice of Kelsier. You need to be Kelsier. Like,
No one can be Kelsier.
No one can be Kelsier.
Which is kind of awesome because Kelsier is not a god, despite him being worshipped by the people as one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
He's just dead.
That was perfect timing.
But what I really like is when Beldre comes up and Kelsier lets his guard down and starts being not Kelsier lets his guard, Spook lets his guard down and starts being Spook and not Kelsier. Is like she actually accepts him. She's like, oh, the street slang that's really cool. Like, I want to hear you talk in it. And, like, Spook has always been, like, afraid of that, hidden it, and he's used it for jokes a couple times, but it's always been something like, if I'm with the crew, I'll talk. But this is somebody who is enjoying that part of it. This is somebody who likes him for who he is.
Oh, poor Spook. It's the same with Sazed. He's not really being who he is, and it's kind of to everyone's detriment.
Mm-hmm. And you also have the part when he's like, oh, I'm going to try to convince your brother. And so she's like, that won't work. He would never use his powers in public.
No, literally, you don't understand. It's not going to work.
Listen to me. It won't happen. And that's it. My notes on this chapter. Oh, wait, never mind. It takes a person of power to recognize those that don't have it in order to prevent it from being warped into something worse. So they commented how they were worried about if they start this revolt, then it's just going to turn into exactly what happened last time. So it's going to cause a lot of chaos. A lot of people are. It's going to be what would have happened if Ellen didn't step in. And it's always like a weird fascination that in order for a lower class people to be elevated correctly, to be elevated with peace and with actual status that earns them that, is not through cutting down the top and recognize you and offer to bring you up.
That kind of goes along with a line it much further down in these books of kind of how if you have to execute someone, society has already failed. No, and I'm guessing that's kind of a spoiler, but just out of context, like I love that idea, like following
I mean,
through.
it's a quote. We'll allow it. It's out of context enough that it doesn't reveal anything.
Yeah.
That was my last little note for 56.
It's a cool chapter, but I don't have much more to say about it.
Okay. 57.
Enlighten us.
The epigraph. So there are each power, ruin and preservation, has different aspects to it. First is the physical aspect, which you can see with the different beings that ruin and preservation have. The second one is spiritual aspect, which is the unseen energy in the world. And then the third one is the cognitive, which is where your minds dwell.
Realmatics.
I was going to say, remember this, children.
There
It
are some
will
big
become
concepts. I'm sure those will
important
never come back.
Yep.
That's
It's a
a
special
surprise
item that
tool.
will help us
Just
later.
So, in this chapter, Vin is in a cell, and she has ruin in her mind, and she's honestly a little bit grateful for it because at least she knows whenever anyone's approaching, because she just hears them go, kill them. So, no one can
Kill
sneak up on her because he's always telling her to kill every person that walks by. So,
Kill them. You must kill them. Kill them
Which-
all.
I have to
Kill
wonder,
them.
has Ruin like set a part of him? I'm thinking about this in programming, like if person comes close, like in a proximity sensor, does he like immediately like beam down to Vin and be like, kill them? Or is he just like sitting outside the jail cell and just like waiting for the door to open? Kill them, you can kill them, kill them.
I think it's more like a computer program that he has running that is not actually part of his, like, that he's not paying attention to.
Nah.
That's just,
Ruin
like,
totally has
running in the
Tourette's.
Madness.ext.
background.
Kill him. Kill him.
As
Come on.
she's thinking about this as the fact that Ruin is not actually here and just has the computer program running on her. That it's just this general influence that she thinks about the fact that she also has she still has control of the cult in Emma's camp. And first she's like, maybe I can use them, but she quickly like throws out that idea because she doesn't think it would actually be practical to use the loss to try to send a message to Ellen. And then Ruin shows up, still wearing Reed's body and face. And he's just kind of there, just talking to her. For like no reason. He's just kind of there. And
Okay.
eventually she kind of realizes that he's here to kind of just to taunt her and to just be like kind of gloating because he feels like he's won at this
He starts
point.
monologuing.
He starts monologuing. Yes. And he's talking about it and he's telling her, he's like, everyone's on my side. This is kind of how Ruin world is. He's like, every single person in this world is my pawn and I will use them to destroy things. Rin is kind of arguing with him about it because she's like, Ellen isn't on your side. Sorry. She's like, Ellen's not on your side. Not fighting for you. He's a good person. Ruin's kind of point throughout this is the fact that Ruin inherently good or evil, inherent morality to Ruin or to preservation, as he mentions. there's no inherent morality to either. Both of them could be considered good or evil. But it's the act of ruin, of destroying something, the act of preserving something. And neither of those acts are inherently good or bad. So Finn gets Ruin to tell her about preservation. She eventually figures it out opposite to Ruin, and he tells her about preservation and about how they had to create the world together because neither of them could create on their own. They had to work together. We already know this because we've already learned this. But this is the first time Ben is learning that Ruin couldn't create and preservation couldn't create on his own. They had to work together. And he does tell her that preservation is dead. He killed him. And
He has an earthquake to announce it too.
Yeah, there is an earthquake at the beginning of this chapter. I think it's at the beginning.
No, it's right about here. And that's when he says preservation is dead. And then he starts talking about his passion.
Are you doing this chapter, reader?
No,
Thank
I'm just
you.
trying to establish where the earthquake was. You took over Swiggity's epigraph.
Swiggity offered. So he
I didn't want to read
does
it.
talk
It was
about
long.
how his destruction of the world is inevitable. We've been leaning up to this for a while. Also, throughout this conversation, Vin realizes that Ruin is not just a thing. Ruin is a person. And she realizes this. She makes this realization, and because of that, she actually starts to think that maybe they can beat him. Since he's a person, not a force. That there is a mind behind it who is a person who is fallible and can make mistakes. So they can win. And at the very end, Vin does ask how long that they have, because it's very clear that they're close to the end. And Ruin says that they have days, not weeks, days left in the world before the world is destroyed.
You have 7 days to live.
And
we're in the end
that's
game
the
now.
end.
I am an
We are in the end game now.
But technically, 13 days is not 2 weeks. So that's a week and 6 days. I mean, technically.
Technically.
Thank you for explaining the absolute outer bounds of Ruin's victory. It is technically less than 2 weeks there. Well, actually, no, because if you have 1.2 of something, you still refer to it in the plural. So not in the plural means it has to be less than 1 week.
True.
I have 2.5 buckets, or I have a bucket and a half of Legos. You know,
Ah.
you know what I'm saying?
Well, that takes my cheat.
I'm just, playing devil's advocate. I mean,
I think they have less than a week.
Yeah, I will say that. Why does Ruin continue to... Sorry.
Well, it's just basically saying that they're boned.
Right. One way or the other, y'all are gonna die.
Yep. Why does Ruin continue to use Reen's... Like the first time, I get
To taunt her.
like
I was gonna say just to mess with her, right?
Yeah, it's just to mess with her. It's
One
because
could
he,
say it's damaging to her morale, which is in line with Ruin's being.
yeah, and he never appears to anyone as himself. He always he's gonna appear as Rain because he wants to mess with her because that's how he is.
is
He
it
totally would have appeared to Kelsier as Mare.
oh
Yeah.
that's
100%.
evil. Yeah.
That's messed up, but
100%.
so true.
If it was, yeah. So
Wonder if is it a fact that he's forgotten what he has looked like? Like this god creature is so old that he doesn't even know what he originally looks like and has to resort to other people's forms.
Mm,
mm, no,
it's a cool idea, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's like, I don't know if this is on purpose or I'm just kind of noticing it, but I think about how the Lord Ruler was defeated. You know, they found out who he was, and that was ultimately the secret that led to them discovering how he could be doing what he was doing, you know? It's kind of cool that Ruin, like, has that separation. Like, I don't know if it's on purpose or not, but it definitely gives him the strength. And then in this chapter, like, he starts to kind of unknowingly show his humanity, right? But when he starts monologuing,
Yeah.
which it's
He
cool because
is.
it like when Preservation did that for Elend, it gave him hope, and the same thing happened for Vin, but in like a different twisted way.
mm, he is a supervillain because he's sitting here monologuing in front of the main character rather than actually executing his plan.
Well, he could be executing it. It's just he doesn't have been in it yet.
I know. I just think it's funny
He's got to
that
warm
he's
up
sitting
the.
here.
He's got to warm up the death laser first. I mean, might as well
But
just
he's
start a
he's
conversation.
taking his conscious to Vin to monologue at her while he's like getting ready to like blow up the world. It's a very James Bond-esque like villain. Like
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
yeah, and then he just like walks away.
Stroking a Koloss head.
No, Empress Venture, I expect you all to die.
He calls her Beautiful Destroyer, which is the title of this part. And I was like, I've been wondering for like the past 3 chapters. So it's like, wait, what is this even in reference to?
Vin is the beautiful destroyer.
Yes, I completely skipped over that on my read-throughs.
I'd say that's kind of subjective. She's a little bit too Lolita-esque for me. Just saying.
Anything
Beautiful
else for this chapter?
Destroyer. I'm trying to think if it has any connection to anything else, you know? I think like it could kind of go for a lot of things until
Well,
this chapter comes up.
Yeah, true.
Mhm.
Like the mist is kind of in the ash in a way. Like
Yeah.
I've always thought those were pretty, and like even like it talks about like the red horizon at night from the ash mounts. Like I think that would look really cool. I think that would be beautiful.
One of the things that originally like sucked me into this series was that it was the first time I'd read a fantasy series that didn't look like Earth.
Mhm.
Right? Like it is so unusual in fiction to have a world that isn't based on the world we live in some way. Like there's not even chickens in this book.
That we know of.
We
Which
see-
kind of
yeah.
chickens?
'Cause they have eggs at one point. I distinctly.
Yeah, I do remember Vin. It's when Vin is asked to identify herself at
Yep.
one point to the guard that they send, and she's like, "I had eggs for dinner," but they might not have been chicken eggs. Maybe they were turtle eggs.
Well, at least we know which came first.
With the boiling sea.
I don't know. Snake eggs.
You don't have to have turtles. Not all turtles live in the water. In the
Also
ocean.
true.
True.
I suppose technically they'd probably be tortoises then, most likely. But, you know.
Okay. Anything else for this chapter? Okay, John, give us the big old finale.
Alright. Oh, I gotta exit full screen here. Yeah. Sure. Oh! Ha! Whoops, I closed my browser. I did not do that on purpose. I apologize. Okay. Once you begin to understand these things, you can see how Ruin was trapped even though Preservation's mind was gone, expended to create the prison. Though Preservation's consciousness was mostly destroyed, his spirit and body were still in force. And as an opposite force of Ruin, these could still prevent Ruin from destroying, or at least keeping him from destroying things too quickly. Once his mind was freed from its prison, the destruction accelerated quickly, in the form of about 10,000 earthquakes. So, we start out our chapter innocently enough. Sazed is instructing Spook on how his mechanism will work to flood the canals of Fadrix again. Spook has already made preparations to get the people out of the slots and setting up the miracle of the waters returning. They also set up to keep the underground lake in the storage cavern full. Spook talks to Beldre about what he's planning, and she begs him once more to spare her brother. Spook makes no promises and says he's leaving guards to keep her in the cavern since he can't guarantee she will be safe. Spook and Dern talk a bit about how Dern's people are getting the populace out of the slots, but some groups he has no control over have already begun looting. However, he promises that after the events of the night, the city will belong to Spook. This is all while they're on the way to the citizen giving a speech. When the crew arrives at the speech Quellion is giving, ash begins to fall. An informant tells Spook the city has already begun to burn from the rioters that have gone out of control. Kelsier speaks to Spook, saying it was a night like this when we felled the Lord Ruler. A glorious night when they took Luthadel and Kel made the city his. Things begin to tense, and that's supposed to be Quellion sees Spook in the crowd. It auto-corrected to question for some reason.
I don't know what does that too.
Spook leaps up onto the stage, attacking and trying to get Quellion or one of his guards to use Allomancy in a way that is obvious. Just having, Thug swinging fast isn't good enough. Breeze and Orianne are soothing and rioting the crowd, preparing to whip them into a frenzy. Spook fights a bodyguard, and after telling the man his family is safe, Kelsier tells Spook to kill him. Spook attacks the man as he's pondering his freedom. Kel then tells Spook to kill Quellion, but Beldre screams no, and Spook pauses. Spook throws Quellion down and tears his shirt a little bit, and he sees something in Quellion. Something like an arrow under his shirt. Then, something hits Spook, a glinting coin shot from Beldre? She was there last time when Spook was stabbed through. She was always the Allomancer. The crowd sees it and begins to riot. One man saying that they killed his brother but left her alive. Or was it his father, I think.
Uncle.
It's one of those male role model types.
It doesn't really matter.
Right.
Well, it's more so it's like you killed somebody who's that far from me, and but you kept your sister.
Kelsier then says, Spook was always going to betray you. She was sent there to kill you, but she never was prepared to kill. She was a pampered noble, and she didn't have the nerve, that kind of thing. And Kelsier tells Spook to kill Beldre, and how to take her power for himself. Stab her through, and then stick the piece of metal into yourself. Spook, dazed, looks over to the city, seeing it burning, and realizes, this is wrong. Spook sees Quellion reaching out to Kelsier, who keeps telling Spook to kill Quellion, and how to take Beldre's power. Spook puts it together, seeing the spike in Quellion's arm. Spook pulls the spike free, and Kelsier rages. Then, he pulls the sword piece from his own chest, and his pewter is immediately cut off, and Kelsier also vanishes. Spook's pain overwhelms him, and he collapses. Sazed comes looking to Spook for instruction and to flee from the city. Spook refuses to run, saying they can stop the flames if they get water. Beldre says the water will not come because she attacked the guards with coins,
Oh no.
which explains how she got out of the cavern in the first place. Spook tells Quellion to take control of his people and organize the fire brigades, or he's going to kill him himself. Spook then goes to the cache to loose the waters on his own. Sazed goes with him, but the building is already on fire, and Spook can't get inside, his senses being too overwhelmed. Then he realizes there's a way. He can cut off his enhanced senses and dull his sense of touch by just turning off his tin.
So, I don't even know where to start on my notes because there's just so much.
Well, I guess start from the beginning and then work your way forward.
Okay, so I have a joke. Throw the lever, Spook.
Wrong lever!
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's even funnier that he's the one who does it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Beldre has a line. Sorry.
I was just saying that is funny.
Oh, thank you. Beldre has a line to Spook at the very beginning. She's like, sometimes people are like, you're not the same person. And like,
You definitely cut out during that line.
Oh, Spook said, Beldre says to Spook, like, you're a different person right now, or you're right, you act differently. You're not the same person. You're like two different people. And like, ironically, Spook is two different people. He's got Spook, the spike of the one guard, so whoever's in that, God impersonating his own.
I guess he is two-souled at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
It's not
1.78, I guess.
I wouldn't really. Yeah. I don't.
In a literary sense,
disagree
that's
with
cool.
that.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yes, in the literary sense, not in the
Yeah.
literal.
I dig it.
And Spook specifically chooses to wear a cloak. Like he's playing into his own mythos now. He literally singed coat when he goes out.
Well, yeah,
You
he's
got
trying
it.
to, like, build up that hype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's trying to become a little mini-god.
No.
He wants to be a little Mistborn, little Kelsier guy, doesn't he? I mean, it's so interesting. He looks up to Kelsier so much, and like he wants to be that cool guy. But in the end, it was like his original tin that got him to be able to throw the lever. I love when Sanderson does that.
Not only that, but it goes back to what we were always talking about in the Final Empire, how the weakness became the power, and how the fact that he could not feel anything, couldn't see anything, means he didn't have to lift his hands.
I do love that. It's like something we see constantly in this series, right? It's kind of the same thing with even him like bonding with Beldre, like his what he considers to be a weakness, like his street slang and all the things he was talking about. Like it's just another extension of that.
That's
even
what connected him with her. Like the line where Kelsier is like, it was such a glory when it became mine. That's not Kelsier. That's not Kelsier. That's ruin, and how he must have felt watching.
I just have to say that I love that we are now calling Ruin taking the form of Kelsier. Like, this is so appropriate, and I love it.
Exactly.
Can we
Yes.
just pause for a second? We don't know at this point that that's Ruin.
I mean, we don't
do we not
have
though?
like a direct statement that is Ruin, but like, come on, we just saw Ruin talking to Vin as Reen, and we saw Ruin talking to Zane as God, and the common line is "Kill them, kill them, kill them, kill them."
So I
So
guess
yeah, we kind of do.
So it's not directly stated, but I think it's pretty inferred at this point that we allow it.
Okay.
It's kind of like something I was saying last week but I'm not going to say it again because I don't want to have more stuff to edit out.
Well, okay, so how much do we have that we want to discuss in the non-spoilery bits?
Okay, but as I was saying, like, that's how it must have felt watching the Lord Ruler, who was going to keep him in prison in the well for another 1,000 years. Seeing him die, that was the day, like, he took the city. One person who stood against him was gone. We got Beldre being the coin shot. They call Spook King at one point, which really plays into it. And in movie format, I want Spook standing on his little platform. You know, people are like cheering his name. They've all got like not pitchforks, but like torches in their hands. And he's standing there with Quellion at like his knees. And then when he realizes everything wrong, and he tears away the literal covering above his eyes, like you see, like everything is not like that. They're not cheering for screaming panic. Those torches are now everywhere. The whole city is on fire. It's not this majestic scene of him strolling up and taking his throne. It's panic. It's chaos.
This book is such a downer. Like, it really is, though. I'm just thinking about it now. Like, the whole time, things are just getting worse and worse. And, like, you know, obviously Spook's, like, misguided sense of confidence, like, had to come to some kind of end. But just seeing him get built up and, like, yeah, Spook needed kind of a slap in the face at this point because, like, he's like, yes, but today I'm going to be the one who's sending, you know. Like, he was clearly playing into it too much and all that, but like, man, you just want to see a win at some point, right? And when this all goes down, it's just another shot in the foot. And this book feels like a series of that.
Like
a series of unfortunate events.
Wrong book series.
The whole. Am I allowed to talk about what kind of spike powers he might have? Not Spook.
Spook?
Quellion?
Citizen. Can I say the spike that he has is bronze? Can I say which of the power he might have had? Okay.
Wait. So we know that he wasn't an Allomancer, was he?
It is a bronze spike, which allows you to steal the mental allomancy. So soothing, riding, copper clouds, and seeking. And I think it fits perfectly into his character of hunting down allomancers and nobles, and if he had gotten the powers of a seeker.
I can see that. I wonder if it's confirmed because, like, that would be perfect and all, but he technically doesn't need one, right? I bet if Ruin was just trying to control him.
Probably was telling him all, hey, there's an allomancer right down the street. If you run outside, you can grab him right now.
And kill him!
Kill him! I kill you!
Oh, kill him!
I think I found a long-lost twin in this show.
If it says that he has a power or not. Sorry.
I believe we know, or at the very, that he had bronze because of the way he was able to seek out and detect other allomancers. But I don't know for sure.
It says the spike gave him the powers of a seeker, which then allowed him to easily find out the population of Earth.
Oh, look at that! So there you
Nice,
go.
nice jab.
It's our quasi not really spoiler because it's not really a spoiler, but you know.
If you're sitting and waiting for us to do a new episode every week, you probably think about these things.
I mean, To anyone who's following along and reading the chapters as we are producing this, I applaud you. I did not think reading the books this slowly would be so painful, but it is hard, man.
Yeah.
It is hard.
I
is brutal.
regularly have to catch myself I regularly catch myself reading ahead on accident,
Right?
not even on purpose. Like,
I wanted
just
to
not
keep
paying
going.
attention.
But at the same
But-
time, it's like, like for these Mistborn books, it's kind of painful because I feel like not that much happens. But like when we get into Stormlight, I think it'll be kind of cool to sit and think about every chapter a little bit, you know?
Yeah, but there are also some chapters where nothing happens.
There are definitely spaces that are not quite filler.
I'm looking at you, Fire Measurer.
Hey,
thought that
that
was
story was
cool.
cool AF, all right?
Yeah.
I can't wait to see Adolin take some girl on a date.
Right?
Okay,
Or
but back
whatever.
to Mistborn. So I originally thought possibly lying about Beldre, being sent as an assassin, but then she's like, "Oh, I attacked the guards, so dang it."
Womp womp.
What's this? Okay, Dragon says he might join us in a bit. There was a small little line which am I allowed to draw attention to it? I named you Spook, you are my friend. Isn't that enough?
I love that. Because it's just, like, because Spook is constantly, and this is after he's pulled the spike out, so it's his own mind about, like, Kelsier and the fact that has always thought that he was the extra, like, that Kelsier never really wanted him on the team. It's just kind of there as a bonus, because Kelsier wanted clubs to be on. And it's kind of nice to, like, that Spook kind of realizes this, like, Kelsier did give him his name, like, he was his friend. Even if he didn't give him a job at the end, that doesn't mean that he wasn't his friend.
And it also comes at the exact moment, like, this whole book he's been like, I have this super tin, and then I get the computer, and I am a god among men. Nobody else has the power. 2 abilities, except for the Inquisitors. And he has to remove that. And it's very quick, and I'm kind of saddened it's like not even hesitated. But I guess that kind of just shows how good it actually is. When he realizes this is wrong, he doesn't even think twice. He removes the spike, removes the power that made him Spook, the survivor of this. And then he gets sent
Super
back
Spook.
to Super Spook. And then he gets sent back to being just Spook again. And as he's sitting there in the flames, and his tin allows him to feel them 10 feet away than anybody else, and he can hear all the wood crumbling, and he can smell all the ash, and probably taste the flames like burning away. He remembers a true bit of Kelsier. I named you Spook. You were my friend. Isn't that enough? And it always was. And Beldre has always been there and saying, who you were is who I like. It has always been. And it is a great message to teach people. You don't have to add things to yourself just for others. You don't need to put yourself on a pedestal. You don't need to make yourself king. You are.
But having super strength never hurt.
It's also true to Kelsier's character too, because like you forget we haven't seen him in a book or 2 almost at this point, and like the way his message is distorted and the way people talk about him, like You forget that there was a lot of cool, down to earth moments he had, where he was just a good friend and he was just a cool person. Like the way he gets idolized and kind of almost perverted by like the Church of the Survivor to be this thing that he was kind of setting up for the purpose of the revolution, like, but at the same time, like back when he was alive, you know, he was just a friend to like a lot of people.
Anything else for this chapter? No. John, would you like to give us your thoughts on this part, as you are the one who does not like this book as much as the rest of us?
I was actually thinking about that statement in particular yesterday, no, a couple of days ago when I was doing the actual reading. I think it must have been Monday. And I was like, you know, this book is way less, like, frustrating this time around, but I bet you all the stuff that was, like, getting under my skin is in the last section. So, you know, we'll see.
Okey-doke. Okey-doke.
Because there's, like, way less earthquakes, and, like, and then the earth rumbled some more, as if in response, you know, like, there hasn't been much of that, and I'm, like, a little bit surprised by that. Like, I remember there being distinctly more of it. But, you know, days, not weeks. We'll see. There's a lot to happen in days.
It's true. Anything else we would like to talk about this part? This part ends really strangely. Final climax, them figuring out, oh, Spike power, that's a huge revelation that would typically be in the last part. And then Vin's still in prison. Kelsier just got the Colossus. Like, there's a lot that is...
You mean Ellen?
Ellen just got the Colossus? Not Kelsier?
Because Kelsier is
Yeah, you said
dead?
Kelsier.
Okay, sorry. My brain glitched.
Slip of the tongue.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Ellen's
God.
got the
If Kelsier had known about Duralaman,
oh, jeez.
would that have just been his whole plan?
Yeah, it would
He totally would have just been like, I'm gonna snipe that bitch from like 6 blocks away with like this dumbbell.
the thing at the beginning of Well of Ascension when Vin goes to save Breeze, Kelsier would have just done with like he would have just pewter punched straight into Krennic's Shaw.
Oh my God, Kelsier!
We've got Kelsier coming in at Mach.
You've got a lot to learn about Alamance. He's just like smoking a pipe.
You could totally make little metal Skittles. Like, for anyone who had Duralaman and then, like, got a spike of another metal, you could make, like, little Skittles of Duralaman mixed with that, like, particular metal. So you could just be like, gulp, gulp, gulp. Every time you needed to use your, like, superpowers. Like, I think I'm making a prediction right now that happens in Era 4.
Well, I'm really expecting is, iron tablets are a thing. Why don't they just make here, like, a jar of tablets that are each metal? Like, that's a real-world thing we have. I think they would give up the whole...
Well, they actually... Let's ask that question again in the next section.
Yes. Okay.
I know, we're so close.
Okay.
We're circling the drain.
Well, next time we are going to be covering the first 5 chapters of Part 5, so 59 to 63. There has been no claims on any of those chapters yet. But it is time to head into the spoiler room. So if you have not finished this book, the entire series, or potentially the entire Cosmere, then we recommend that you stop here, because it is likely that we will talk about everything and anything. But if you are up to date, feel free to stick around, because it is likely that we will bring up details you may have missed, or plot threads still yet to come. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, star, heart, whatever it is on this podcast. And don't be afraid to comment your own thoughts and predictions to cosmereconnectionspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. But if this is where we must part, I'm Ms. Reader, and I've been joined by Swiggity Swoo.
Thanks for coming along.
John.
Well, there goes my pewter.
and K.
Have a good one.
Okay. There's always another connection. And we're back. Spoilers.
Now we can say whatever we want.
But I will refrain my comment that got bleeped for the Sazed part.
Moesh did nothing wrong?
Chapter 55. Poor Laris. He's doing his best.
I mean, for a sort of brain dead guy, I guess.
He was trying.
He
He's
was.
doing what he can with what he's got.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Well, is this where he has like Kelsier chewing him out the whole time?
Kind of. It's sort of like once he's ready. I think it's like shortly after this conversation that you have that scene with Kelsier where he's like, "Don't you dare stop it." Okay. And then he dies. So it's like right after this.
Okay.
But
So
like,
he is there though, kind of talking in his ear in a weird way. It's kind of like what is happening to Spook, except it's actually Kelsier.
but it's like what's really weird and kind of sick to think about is the reason preservation. You have to live so you can die when Vin is a god and she can sacrifice. Because if you just die here, Vin's just gonna be mad.
And believe me, you do not want Vin mad at you.
Yes.
I
but, like,
You
don't
really
remember
don't.
enough about these books to like make a comment on that.
okay.
Yeah, it's easy to forget the stuff in Secret History.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I find myself having a hard time keeping track of that too.
Same. Anything for chapter 55? There's not really. I really just wanted the preservation chapter.
Is this
Okay.
this is the first like kind of this is the first mention we'll get in the whole series about like the shards basically having somebody be their vessel, right? Like up until now we've kind of known that there were powers, but this is like the first time we're seeing like, oh, there's actually like a human behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's kind of confirmed as well, like in Vin's chapter, when it's like when she's talking to Ruin and she realizes that Ruin a person.
Yeah. Which to me is like their one weakness. Like, you know, even looking at Odium in like Stormlight, like they only could beat him via his kind of overconfidence and stuff. And I feel like that's a big theme that's going to carry through with like a lot of other books.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 56. Okay, now I'm going to talk about it. So, it's ironic that Sazed is worried about his faith and wants to achieve belief again when he's thinking about Spook, who is literally having the voice of one of his Terrace gods speak directly into him.
I know, right? Do you think if Spook had told him that he was talking to Kelsier, like, what would Sazed's reaction have been?
Probably, you're crazy.
I think it would have been, we all speak to Kelsie. It would probably just fit into more doctrine.
Gesundheit.
Oh, he's now a next survivor and he has to listen to tales of the previous one.
No, he's literally in my head right now telling me to kill that guy.
He's literally standing right there. And he's making a stabbing motion at Gorodon. Like, I'm telling you, he's here. He is always with us, Spook. No, he's right here.
No, you don't get it.
You've got the Eastern Street slang, which becomes high nobility language.
High Imperial.
High Imperial, yes.
The
Oh, I love
language
it.
that all the really old documents are written in.
Oh,
Every time they make a reference to that, I always think it's Imperial Gothic from Warhammer, and it just my brain auto translates that.
I gotta wonder if it started off as like, I'm gonna do this just to annoy Breeze, and because Beldre likes it. And that was
1000% it was mostly because Beldre likes it, but 10% like because it will annoy Breeze.
Exactly.
I can't
Also
believe I
'cause
forgot
it's-
that they actually get together.
Yeah, they do. You completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
They're so cute together.
It's
They
been
get
a while.
together. They have
I
a
mean,
bunch of
they're
kids.
like a pair of
as
awkward
well.
teenagers, so like,
They have like a dozen kids or something.
Yeah, they have like a bunch of kids.
well, they
Jesus.
are both half ska.
True.
But
Plus, I'm pretty sure Kelsier, Sazed made everybody who survived like extra fertile to like help repopulate the planet for a generation.
that's possible. Okay, nothing in Beldre's.
Oh, about how many kids they have? Is that what
Yeah.
you're looking up?
Yeah, I'll check Spooks real quick.
I don't think it ever says. I think they do have kids together, but I don't think it says how many.
It's probably in a WAP or something, yeah. No, it's not in the Coppermine. But apparently he existed in the Alcatraz universe at some point.
Who, Spook?
What?
Yep.
Where does it say that?
Trivia. At one point, Spook existed in the Alcatraz universe.
Oh, probably before it was actually published.
At a White Sand signing. So it was probably a question. A trivia fact that he made. Okay. I got nothing else for this chapter. Oh, never mind. I got one more thing, but I'll wait.
I mean,
You think we'll ever get
I've
that
heard
White
some
Sands
people have gotten
omnibus?
delivery of it.
If I hadn't spent the money to buy all it, but also considering that you've got the Where's Your Radiance Kickstarter coming out next year, I want to go to Dragonsteel, and it's just like, how much money this guy?
I bought on Audible the White Sands graphic audio like dramatization. I haven't listened to it yet, but it's sitting there in my phone.
This was one of the things that Sanderson said at the convention. One of the announcements that he made was that they're going to do a prose, that he's planning to do a prose version of White Sand after he finishes Stormlight 5. That's what he's planning to do right after Stormlight 5, is to write the prose version of White Sands.
Well, hopefully that doesn't take too long.
No, because he's already got it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And he's got, like, the graphic novel and stuff, so...
I wonder if the stereo will show up in it.
No.
The boombox.
No.
That'd be hilarious.
There's
I know,
no
but
way.
like that would be a hilarious little Easter egg
That was
to
a
have in the
mistake.
novelization, like
Yeah.
the strange box that made music.
Yeah. Just for all the Cosmere, for all of us old guys who know about it, and just be like, it used to be so annoying, but now we just find it hilarious. My one last comment about this chapter is the Sazed's like, the end of the world is a time when one should have faith. or is it time when people should have faith? But it's ironic that Sazed literally starts the end of the world by renewing his faith.
The end of the world and the beginning of a new one. I mean, this whole section with Sazed is so ironic, and just like even like all the comparisons to Vin and Elend, like being kind of chosen by preservation and ruin, while all this time we know what happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a misdirect.
Anything else for chapter 56?
I mean, was it just really sweet that preservation showed up to Elend, or was there like more of a reason behind that?
He needed Ellen to stay alive until Vin had ascended so she can die. It's literally a Dumbledore situation.
He and
You cut out there.
gave he knew that if Ellen gave up, that it would be the end of the human armies, essentially. Like, that
Yeah.
would be it for them. And Ellen was really close to giving up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Chapter 57. We have romantics in the epigraph.
A
really
realm
says...
of mind and spirit.
Okay, we're not going to talk about Vin being a slight inquisitor until that's direct. Because it's so obvious in hindsight. It's so obvious.
I mean, it's supposed to be. Like, you hear that and you're like, oh my god, how did I not realize that? Like, I know that's what I said.
She literally wonders if she's going mad, and then talk about, gosh, could it be any more like this? Like, so Zane was his, Yeoman kind of was his, Ellen will not be his, but the Koloss that he brings will be. Gotta give it to Ruin. He does plan very.
He really is a Bond villain.
I was really hoping, like, considering they're from a more technologically advanced age, like Ruin would say, like, all things die, Vin. Your cell phone battery will die eventually. Like, he starts talking about they have no concept of.
Your iPhone will expire the minute the new one comes out.
Yeah.
Eventually, AI will take over everything.
Yeah, we're stuck here doing all the hard work while AI is making art and playing music.
Yeah.
Twitter's called X now.
I was just really hoping the entropy talk would be just pocket watches and lamps. Like, I understand why, but I just thought it would be so funny if it was just, I'm going to talk about what I'm used to. You've got another Earth celebration of President death, and I consider that the exact moment that he died. He literally says, like, oh, Passion. I'm like, no, Passion's the other guy. We don't like him.
I thought about that too. But you gotta think, at this point, like, Stormlight was just an idea in Sanderson's head, right? Like, he probably didn't know if it was ever gonna get published.
Yeah, at this
Probably.
point.
There was an action. Oh, Kelsier spoke to.
To Spook, yes.
No, to Vin.
No.
Oh, because he
Kelsier.
makes the. What's the first rule of Elemency, Vin? Consequence.
Yeah.
Action.
That was just her. I don't think that wasn't him actually speaking to her.
I know, but it's in her mind. She's remembering Kelsier and
Yeah.
Kelsier's law.
Yeah.
Kelsier's Law.
Seriously.
Sorry, I thought you were trying to say that Kelsier actually spoke to her.
No, no, no.
And, like, no.
No. But I'm saying, like, it's ironic that was Spook's whole chapter, like, this one true remembrance of Kelsier. What's the first rule of Alliance event? That's what teases her into the opposite of her.
Well, it's kind of similar to like the end of Spook's chapter, right, where he has that one line he remembers.
We'll get to that in a minute. And then you have they have this whole thing is actually there's a great conversation between power and man, which I never caught on when I read this, but it teases up the idea that preservation is dead, but the power that it was, that's somewhere.
Yes, the power is separate from the person controlling it, the vessel.
And the reason why Ruin is still at full power as he wants ATM.
Yep, because he does not have the ATM.
That's all I got for 57.
Do we know, like, so do we know kind of like why he wants it? Like, if it seems like the world is already getting destroyed, like, is that just going to help him speed up the process?
It's also
or like,
likely it would
why does he
him
care?
to uninvest himself. Like, if all that is re-put into him, yes, he can probably just, like, immediately blow up the planet. But also that would be him reclaiming his investiture, and then he could leave. Then go, ruin other things.
So, there's a thing I've always had a problem with, and it might be a little bit more relevant later, so we may rehash this later. But something that's always bugged me is when you burn the god metals, you are not just turning the key to access a power like you are with the other metals, right? Because those god metals are actually physical, solid state manifestations of a shard. But you cannot destroy shardic power, so what happens to that power once it's been used?
It goes to the spiritual realm. It does not return to the shard. It goes a sort of middle ground, especially ATM being with currently.
Yeah, it goes to god metal purgatory.
Yes.
That doesn't make sense.
It goes, well, there's the whole ATM retcon that we'll have to discuss at some point again. But also, I believe it is said that burning Allomancy, the investiture goes to the spiritual realm and then later returns to the shards or condenses and becomes... Well, ATM specifically will condense and become metal, and that'll become ATM. But typically, you burn it, the investiture is released from the metal, and then that goes to the spiritual realm, and later that can go back to the shard. I take it you're wondering why, if burning the ATM doesn't just give Ruin his power?
Yes, that was always the issue. It's like, okay, it's been burned, it's indestructible, it's investiture, it's still somewhere, like, why? And it's keyed, so it goes to the shard it belongs to, which, by the way, is infinite. And how does this little, 150 stomachs worth of atium enough power that it would change the time of world destruction, entire planet destruction, from moments to at most a couple of weeks?
Okay.
Like, this is a lot of, it doesn't quite line up. I mean, it's cool, don't get me wrong, like, it makes for an awesome story, but it just doesn't quite fit.
Okay, Sazed's probably going to talk about in the episode, most likely. first of all, the ATM is special, and that investiture will go into the spiritual realm. And was it Preservation or was it Rashek that made the pits?
Preservation.
Okay, so Preservation made the pits, and I'm using the retcon version of this. Basically, the power condenses from pure ATM to a mixed ATM, which allows it to be just of Preservation's access. Because otherwise, if it was true ATM, then any misting would be able to access it, considering they have both of that investiture. So Preservation makes it fit into his... Boy, the chart is really messy in Arrow 1. But basically, ATM condenses... Okay, thinking of like the water cycle. So rain comes down, the ATM, the ruined investiture condenses, mixes in with tin, copper, whatever, becomes the ATM we know, but is not true ATM. A person burns it, the investiture is released back to the spiritual realm, and then while AT was trapped in the well, Preservation probably rearranged the spirit web, where basically instead of that power going straight back to ruin, it goes back down to the pits, where it'll become condensed, and that's why that takes so long.
That has slight problems too, though, because if Laris did it, that's outside of his purview of preservation, because he made a change. He didn't preserve, he altered.
But was it for the better preservement of something else? Because AT can just create to destroy. Can't we assume that Preservation can change to keep?
Only with the assistance of another shard.
I disagree.
You think
on
so?
that, because that's the creation part, but I feel like that was to create mankind with sentience. But I think he can change things.
I have a problem with that too, because why would you have to create a new mankind with sentience when there's already mankind living on other planets in the Cosmere?
I think we're gonna get information on that, but I think it was more so let's test out these powers. And there's also whatever the backs, which we know nothing about. Brandon is tight-lipped. No reason.
What did you say? You cut out there for a second. There's also the what?
Whatever happened on Vax, which is supposedly after the splintering, the shattering, whatever it is. Ruin and Preservation went to the planet Vax, and then they found the asteroid that later became Scadrial.
I'm guessing Ruin blew it up.
That is a quite popular theory, yes.
I mean, Occam's razor, right?
Yeah. But they were like testing their powers or something. Or maybe they were like, hey, we're best friends. We can keep each other in equilibrium. If we just create, let it run its course, you destroy, and then we'll just restart the whole thing every couple hundred million years. Who knows? Shoot, there was another thing you brought up that I wanted to...
Yeah, I always felt like the consciousness thing has to be part of like the larger story in a way. Like you're saying, like, oh, if there was already this humanity, why did Preservation have to give part of his power to make a consciousness? It makes me wonder if like every shard that makes people has to do that.
Well, investiture itself has cognitive abilities. You group up enough investiture and it will gain sentience. So it's like, I am giving this spark that'll give you thought. This is the fire of knowledge that Prometheus brought down. Whoa. Never named that connection.
Whoa.
I amaze myself sometimes. But you made
He starts monologuing.
There was another thing you said that I wanted to comment on, but I can't remember what it was anymore. Well, whenever this episode comes out, and I'll be able to like, oh yeah. Okay.
It's not that big a deal. I mean, we're really getting into like the super deep weeds with some of this stuff.
And we'll probably come back to it later.
I'm sure it will come up again.
Anything else for 57? Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't have any.
Okay. 58, the big one.
Dun, dun, dun.
No, wait, we were already on 58. What am I talking about? I just glitched back like 10, 20 minutes. What the heck? I'm so sorry. We were already on the chapter.
It's one of those nights.
No, thanks. Wait, where are we?
I'm not sure. I
don't even remember. Okay, we're definitely on 58 now. We're definitely.
I don't know. My whole thing was sort of just like realmatics in general, so it's not necessarily tied specifically to a chapter. And a lot of the stuff that is in this section is all kind of tied to each other as far as like the spoiler content of it goes.
Yeah. Kind of like how Quellian sees as well. Like, I thought that was a nice little touch, and the fact that Ruin kind of appears on like the same wave as every. Or is it just the fact that he appears as Kelsier and the image of Kelsier operates on the same wavelength?
No, I think that it's that he appears in the same place.
So, like, because we know Penrod sees the. So if Penrod
Lord
was
Ruler.
there, would Penrod see the Lord Ruler, Kelsier see, not Kelsier, Spook see Kelsier, and Vin see Reen if they were all in the same place?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
At least that's how I
That's how I
think
would
about
picture it
this.
too, but I've never like honestly thought about it until now.
I doubt it's that big of a deal.
But because like maybe he could only really talk to one of them at a time though, because you kind of see like Rian throughout the whole books, and like Kelsier is there talking to like Spook, and I'm sure he's not actually there talking to Spook the whole time. It's kind of that whole like we were talking about like the program of him being like kill him. Like I bet that would still persist.
Probably. But I'm going to quickly put us on pause for a quick second. Not in recording wise, because I think we're about to have like guests join us. Come on, Dragon. Let me down.
Dragon's not a guest.
I was gonna say
He's not a guest, but we're going to have an old for dinner.
our part-time host will be joining us for the last few minutes of this.
He said he was going to hop on. Let's hope we don't have to wait too long. There used to be a way where I could just drag people into a call.
Don't do that.
There used to be a way.
There used to be a way.
You can
There
do
used to
that
be a way.
on Microsoft Teams. You can do that.
Yeah, you can do it in Discord too, or at least you used to be able to. But
Yeah.
don't do that. That's just mean. He's not.
No, I won't.
Let him.
I don't even see how to do it anymore. The apps invite.
I think he
You-
might actually have to be in any voice chat before you can forcibly move him into a voice chat.
Possibly. I can kick him.
I don't do that. What is your? I give you control of the server, and you've gone mad with power.
Yes.
Stop that.
I hear
Stop
Kelsier
that.
whispering in my ear, kick them. Kick them
All right.
all.
Remove the metal spike from your left cheek.
That's it. Kick him. Hold on, I gotta remove my spike too. Who would? Okay, who would Ruin appear to y'all as?
Oh, that's a great question.
If you were spiked.
I don't know if Brandon Sanderson showed up and just started telling me to kill, change tiny little tidbits about steel. Like I'm.
Josiah Bartlett.
Is that from West Wing?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
President
No,
Bartlett
wait.
showed up.
No, I'm sorry. I got to change that. Leo McGarry.
Oh yeah, Leo would definitely be a
right. Like when Leo says frog, you ask how high.
Yeah. Lord John Marbury.
No, you just go get the shot glasses.
Yeah. Okay, what about you guys then?
Well, I've never seen West Wing, so
Doesn't have to be West Wing. We would prefer it to be, but it doesn't have to.
I don't know. I can't think of like a good one, but I'm picturing like a lot. I'm just like Ruin himself, like not for me personally, right? But like in the world right now, Ruin is definitely like Andrew Tate.
Oh.
Like not for me personally, you know.
Yeah. There he is. There's our favorite dragon.
Hey, yeah.
Hello.
Ahoy!
To work, but I'm just jumping on through.
Well, welcome. We're just about at the end. We're gonna finish up some notes, but really quickly, if Ruin were to appear to you, what would he choose?
Oh.
My ex-wife.
Hey!
Definitely makes me want to kill some.
Oh, jeez. So we're talking like if he appears as a way to try to coax me to do something.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, in actuality, and he'd probably pick some sort of figure from the religious texts that I believe in. Like that seems to be a pretty easy and common trend. So I feel like that'd be a pretty easy choice for him.
It's the same as my answer.
So yeah, sorry, it's nothing weird or crazy, but I mean, anyone that's particularly, I should say not anyone. There's a large majority of, religious individuals whose text involves, appearances of some sort of, highly spiritual figure, whether you're talking about God or angels or, some other form of, spirits or demons, or, if you're looking into like more like the Japanese culture and lore, you've got like various gods of, like the moon or the ocean or like high, like super powerful spirits, or, so I feel like that's generally going to be a very safe play for probably a large majority of the world, to be honest.
And I would probably agree if, like, I believe in Jesus, and in my mind and what I believe my faith represents, Jesus is all about forgiveness. But if Jesus appeared and told me stabbing with iron spikes, I would be a little bit like, you're not that Jesus, are you?
Time. He would warm you
Right.
up to
I
it.
mean, yeah, he didn't have, Kelsier didn't appear and be like, oh, go take this spike and go ram it through this dude's eye right away. Like,
That's
a little, it's kind of when he was, we learn in those instances where like other things are happening that like Ruin's attention, like if you like from Mistborn history, secret history, Ruin's attention is elsewhere when Spook is doing his thing and he appears to Spook.
Yeah.
Like his attention isn't there, even though he's appearing in Kelsier's form, being like, "Take the thing and stab it through her heart and into you. I can help you with that." Like his attention isn't there. at that time, and yet he's still able to talk about stuff like that. So that's like kind of when he's like, he's like, I've got this in the bag. Like I just throw some kind of generalizations that way, and we're gonna mop this up real fast. So it's like when he's paying attention and like taking his time that I think things will develop over time. So I think that's gonna be like he's gonna always try to pick something that someone believes in some fashion, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kay, did you
Whether
say
that-
who you picked? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, you're good. Go.
I honestly don't know who I would expect that, cause I don't know.
It's tough, right? Because it's kind of a personal question in a big way. Like when you really start thinking about it, like who would have the most influence over you? Like it's probably somebody from your life,
Jiminy
from the
Cricket.
past,
Who, if they gave me a gun, would I listen to if they told me to shoot somebody?
Jiminy Cricket.
Jiminy Cricket. Oh, listen here.
I think like a weirdly realistic answer for me maybe would be like maybe it would be like drugs or alcohol or something in that way. Like I feel like ruin is almost kind of a stand-in for that in like a metaphorical way, where it kind of like it could give you this false sense of confidence, and you start to kind of like listen to it more and more, or you might start acting out.
Yeah. Back in the actual. Spook runs into the fire. That was actually Kelsier. I named you Spook. You are my friend. Isn't that enough? Tore my heart out one last time. I didn't think Kelsier could. Then he releases the water. And the chapter goes dark. Dragon, you said you had some thoughts on.
So the thoughts were more kind of like based around like the whole argument that you guys were having. This is again like probably a little more unhinged as far as like it was just like around the argument of like when could Vin potentially pick up the power. So let's keep ourselves like on the general chapter, and I'll add in stuff for chapters, and then kind of at the end, I can voice my opinion on that, so we don't get I
Well,
don't sidetrack us too much after I join.
we've kind of gone through all the chapters.
Gone through all of them. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we were just kind of finishing up with 58.
Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah, so for that, I would say, so I kind of did some poking around online just to like see if someone could put some other things together around Vin, like why is Vin able to take the mist into her body, like what are some other people's opinions on this, like why is she seems so susceptible to this aspect, like was it just when Ruin, like what was the cause? And one of the things, I don't have the exact chapter when the quote is from, but some of the potentially relevant epigraphs is, I think it might be, I don't know which chapter, I think it's one of the future ones, where it talks about why like preservation chose Vin.
That's the epigraph.
Is and so it says
epigraph.
like, it's which one?
It's the epilogue epigraph. I know that one.
Epilogue epigraph. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So, but he says like at the very end, like that he suspected that she had been taking in the mists from when she was a child.
Yep. But she couldn't take them in completely until she used the Well of Ascension and basically attuned herself to it.
Why?
Because
if she could take in mists, it might take longer. Her body was more prepped and ready.
There was.
But what's saying that if she could take in the mist then, it would take her a longer time, but if she didn't have the spike in her ear as a baby, she could have taken them in when she was a toddler or a kid.
I think technically when she defeated Lord Muller, she could have continued taking in the mist, and she could have taken in all this at that point in time,
Mhm.
but she stopped. She stopped herself.
Because the point is that she wasn't taking him in. So when she gets to the end of Hero of Ages, it's been yearning and wanting it to such a point that she basically takes them and she just like keeps taking them in without stop, because she's like has this more of like realization in her body, like the mists are yearning going somewhere, her body is yearning pulling it in. It's almost just like this massive push. So if, like, but the point is, if she had have known about it earlier, or her body just kind of naturally used the mist every time that she used elements in the past, there's a chance she could have taken it in beforehand. The Well Ascension could have helped, but her body was already attuned from when she was basically a toddler.
No,
Which is part of the why Ruin had her spiked so early.
I distinctly remember a line that states like Vin could tap it, basically access a bit of it, but it wasn't until she attuned herself to like a god frequency and connected herself strong enough to preservation that she could absorb it completely. Like I specifically remember a line about her needing to go to the Bloopers.
I don't ever remember that line, so I'll try to look for it too. I'll help you try to look for it, but I can't.
I distinctly remember that it might be a wob or it might be a line that Brandon has said, but I distinctly remember that.
So also, I do want to. I don't think Ruin originally knew that preservation wanted to pick Vin.
Right.
Had picked Vin. Ruin picked Vin because she had the right set of circumstances. She had a crazy mother and a sister and a sibling who could burn broad. And those were the only two things that were needed in order to give her that
his initial
spike.
pick was out of convenience for sure.
Yeah, not
It
out
does
of
talk about that.
yeah, not out of not out of trying to thwart preservation.
Yeah. So it just happened that they both picked the same person.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than anything else. So I don't know. I'll look for some wobs on it. I'm like I spent some time searching like before I jumped on, to see like effects of Well of Ascension and effects of other things. I haven't found it yet. So like if that is out there, then I can see that. But I don't know. My kind of take is technically she could have taken in the mists at any point, given just her body to like needing to pull them in. At the end, I think it made it a lot easier, and hence why it was like this giant like vortex, and it happened within, whatever, a 10-minute fight or something like that, versus taking potentially hours or days to be able to absorb it. But I don't know. Those are kind of some of my thoughts on the matter as far as like preservation's power going into Vin. Also, another thought I always had, I'm not sure if this was the case, but like in chapter 55, when Ellen is met with, by preservation, is that, why does he, it's just kind of like nothing like crazy, but it's like, why can't he like, I feel like when he tries to have him like right in the, on the ashes, like it changes because Rowan changes it, but then he's like, oh, just make them like bigger, and I'm like, I feel like the number of times I've watched people like write or like, oh yeah, like draw this like letter on your back, and you try to like remember what it is. I don't know if you did that as a kid. I'm like, why was it just like immediately recently. Like, I can't tell what you're waving your arms in the air about? Like, why can't I trace your like fingers and make the letters visually. It seemed like a very easy thing if they were like speaking the same language. My only thought is like, hey, maybe he's like using his power to translate it to their language versus like, so when he writes it, he technically is writing it in Yolish versus writing it in, you know, whatever language that they speak. I don't know, just like a random thought.
That's an interesting thought. I kind of like that.
Yeah, especially because Ellen does make a statement where he's like, either I don't know what this is not gonna work, or you just don't know your letters. And he makes a comment about that, so I like that theory.
Yeah.
I just kind of assumed it was because he was like made up of mist in the mist, and he was kind of fading already, so it was like hard for him to see, hard for him to make out distinct shapes, you know.
Yeah, that's probably a factor too.
I mean, that's, you know, probably, but like he talks about like he can tell enough by like the way he wiggles and waves his arms and stuff, so he's able to see enough of it. But yeah, you know, that may have played a factor into it. But you know, people generally don't actually learn languages; they just rely on connection to be able to like write or speak. And so it's like he probably just kind of relying on his power, and maybe when he's like, "Oh yeah, I spell this," and then he might just have been spelling it in Yolish because he's kind of like at the edge of his grasp, and he's like, "I don't have the power to really like connect a ton right now, so I'm just like, I'm gonna write in what I know."
Oh, I thought he was doing like the old terrace symbols that became the symbols for elemency, doing this half crescent with the spike through it. Like that's what I thought he was doing.
Oh.
But I
also
could see Yolish being it. Yolish would make sense. It is what he knows.
Or whatever he happens to know. You know, we don't exactly know what he knew as his language. I think Yolish because it seems like the most plausible.
Yeah.
So.
I can't find anything at face value, but I'll check around. But I could have sworn there was a line that needed to be attuned. Could have sworn. I'll
I
look
have
around for more.
Not heard of that, so. But that's not to say that it couldn't exist. I'm just saying that I have never heard of that.
Right.
Wobs aren't real. They don't count. They're not published. They're not like, I mean, they're sort of published, but they're not like canon until they're in a published book.
Yep.
But it's like ancient history. It's all we have.
Right.
We have to live it.
All we have left are these ancient Egyptian emojis.
Right.
Dragon, do you have anything else you want to comment? One in charge of when we end. No, I guess.
In chapter 56, did anyone bring up kind of the piece where like Spook and my brain totally blanked. Yeah, no. The
Beldre?
first name that you
Beldre?
Yeah. Beldre, thank you. Sorry, my brain is just like auditory response right now. Like Spook and Beldre are like talking, and then he like gets all like, I don't know, I just kind of like love that he's like, no, I gotta be stoic, and then it's like, oh, the girl that I like is here, and he gets all giddy, and he's like, oh yeah, let me tell you all about this stuff. Oh wait, no, that sounds stupid. You know, I need to go back to pretending to be, you know, silent, macho, you know, stern type. And it's like, no, she wants silly, geeky, nerdy, you know, street slang Spook. not anything else.
Yeah. We touched on that a little bit, talking about how it's very sweet. Like Beldre likes Spook for who he is, and not who he's trying to pretend to be.
Right.
Which is kind of weird considering all he's done is like stalk her in the mists and then like sort of kind of kidnap her in a weird way, but not really.
Hey, Beauty and the Beast is just Stockholm Syndrome, but still one of the best love stories.
I
than Twilight.
I will argue with you on that at a different date, but not today.
Yeah, no, I Stockholm Syndrome.
I don't actually.
It's not
Stockholm Syndrome.
It's not, but it's not because she changes Beast. It's okay, but we're getting off track.
So then the
Anything
question
and
is,
everything.
I do think that is like a toxic way to view relationships of like, oh, if I just, if I just, eventually this person will come to love me. Like, I feel like if you don't really hit it off right away, like the chances of that
And
are
it does
probably
seem like
slim.
they like each other from the start, so there is that connection there.
Nah, she was totally into him for his books. Fight me.
wait,
Oh,
are we still
bro.
talking about Belle or Beldre?
Bell.
I keep trying to pull this back to Beldre, and then we're suddenly talking about books
Wait a
again. I'm like,
second.
Spook didn't have books. Maybe he had cans of food, but he didn't have books.
Tale as old as time, miss kill all the time. I don't have
Beauty
a
and
rhyme.
the Savant.
Yeah. There we go. Is there anything else you
Cool,
want to
yeah.
comment on this chapter?
No, that wraps it up really for me.
We've gone round the cuckoo clock.
Oh yeah. One
As
flew over the
always.
cuckoo's nest. 5 cuckoo's nest drove straight into it.
Yada yada yada. Stomlight. Yada yada.
Elantris Warbreaker.
It's a regular spoiler
Why don't
section for
we
us.
wrap it up then?
Okay. Well, that's going to just about cover it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us on our ramblings and predictions. We cannot wait to cover what is next. This has been Cosmere Connections, and we hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Enjoy your extra helping of ramble.
Fire
Dawn.
one?
Yeah, I have that one. And oh, what was the one that Dawn? Oh, I have to look. I can't
Is it
remember.
like Sunbringer or something? What's
Yes, Sunbringer or something like
Sunraiser?
that.
What is Ellicott? have?
Sunraiser, that's it.
One of
I don't think
my
that's it.
goals for next year is to try to crochet one of the
Oh,
short
jeez.
blades.
Firestorm. That's Firestorm, Oathbringer, and Sunraiser. Yep.
Firestorm, really?
Yep.
That is Sunraiser.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always thought that was really cool.
There's
Heck yeah.
there's a lady who I have met twice now at the Sanderson convention, not on purpose. I've sat next to her at 2 different conventions. That has a crocheted nightblood.
Nice.
Crocheted. That's awesome.
I've
Yeah.
debated 3D printing a Nightblood for myself, but he's not really a shard blade.
No.
Oh god, I need to turn my background back on.
It's a very basic blade too, which I think is
It
cool.
is a very basic sword, too.
But it's like not that interesting looking.
Well, yeah,
The
that's because
fun-
it was a normal sword that was awakened, so it just looks
Yeah.
like a normal sword.
Yeah.
The fun thing about what she made
it's
was
still cool.
she actually put like dark purple ribbons around the top, so when you pull it out, the like ribbons
Oh,
come
that's
out
cool.
like
Nice.
smoke out of the
That's cool.
out of the sheath.
That's awesome.
Excellent. All right, we're good to go whenever you guys are ready. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Okie
No
dokie.
worries.
Good. Don't worry.